So quiet, Feng Zhao said. Zhuyu thought, isn't this nonsense? Muzhou is like this. The population is small, the farms are huge, and there are farmlands and grasslands everywhere, Zhuyu said. Feng Zhao smiled but did not explain. During the apocalypse, the nights were not like this. On the way back to the living quarters that Wu Yi had arranged for them, Feng Zhao realized that although the farm was very quiet, there were many eyes behind the silence. The entire farm was under surveillance. Every night, there would be people standing guard in the surveillance room, ready to investigate if any abnormalities were discovered. The dogs on the farm also displayed their function as primitive alarms. Even when their eyes were closed, their ears could hear the slightest movement in their surroundings. The farm was well managed. Feng Zhao knew that even without this collaboration, Wu Yi would still be able to expand the farm. It would just take a little more time. After returning to the house, Feng Zhao did not go out. Zhuyu also returned to his own room. If Feng Zhao did not go out, he could also relax a little. Zhuyu suddenly stopped mid-yawn. He suddenly thought of something. No wonder he had felt that something was not right. He had followed Feng Zhao all the way, but after returning, Feng Zhao was not panting as he had expected. How was that possible? According to the information on the files, Feng Zhao should be the kind of artist who could not do anything and could only rely on his brain to earn money. But why did he look so relaxed after running for such a long time? Could it be that it was as Zhu Wan and the others from the virtual projects department had said? Feng Zhao spent a lot of time training every day, but even if it was a normal level of training, it was impossible to achieve this, unless Feng Zhao increased the intensity of his training. What was the use of a high-intensity training for an artist? Zhuyu realized that he could not understand Feng Zhao more and more. Shaking his head, he took 2 steps and paused. He recalled that the curly-haired dog that had been following Feng Zhao around did not seem to be panting either. During the day, it had followed the farm's shepherd dogs to practice herding. At night, it had followed Feng Zhao for a late run. Yet it had not even panted. If it had been any other dog, it would probably be panting on the ground after returning. Zhuyu was even more depressed. He could not even understand a dog. The next day, Su-ho came out of the kennel in high spirits and jogged over to find Feng Zhao. He had followed Feng Zhao for a whole day yesterday, but he had sprayed medicine at night. Today, his muscles did not feel sore. Instead, because of the sweet dream he had the night before, his mouth was wide open when he woke up. I heard young Master Su had a sweet dream yesterday. What did you dream about? Wu Yi asked when he saw Su-ho. I just dreamt. Sigh, I can't remember. Anyway, it was something good. Hee, Master Zhao. Su-ho shouted when he saw Feng Zhao. The farm's name has been changed. In the next competition, we will be able to use the new name. After Su-ho had bought Shishan Farm, he had wanted to change its name. After all, with the new owner, he did not want to use the old name. Even if the farm had nothing now, it was still his property. Changing the name would make him feel better. But after thinking of many names, Su-ho could not decide which one to use. Eventually, Feng Zhao said, if you don't like Shishan, then change it to Dongshan. It has the meaning of making a comeback. Thus, Su-ho applied for a name change. It had been approved that morning. From today onwards, their farm would no longer be Shishan Farm, but Dongshan Farm. Although he could not remember the contents of his dream, Su-ho remembered that it had to do with the sheep herding competition. Just as Feng Zhao had said, he was looking forward to making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. When the time came, he would let everyone watching the sheep herding competition in Muzhou know the name Su-ho. Plus, with the success of the farm's name change, Su-ho's mood was even better. He put in even more effort in learning how to herd sheep. For the next few days, Su-ho followed the flock of sheep every day, instructing the team of 7 shepherd dogs to herd the sheep. The sheep used for training were 100 sheep that Wu Yi had selected from his herd. The breed and quality of the sheep were chosen according to the sheep used in the sheep herding competition. Before the finals, the sheep were the most commonly seen sheep in Muzhou. Su-ho's 3 bodyguards lamented every day. They had seen their young master go from being at a loss at the start to looking good. At the start, he would take half a day to think about a command. Later, he could quickly give hand signals when he saw the flock of sheep change. It had only been a week, and the young master had lost weight. Every day, Wu Yi would impart some sheep-herding techniques to Su Ho. This time, he did not hold back. Since he had already chosen to cooperate and bet on Dongshan Farm, he would give it his all. If he still held back at this time and was unwilling to reveal anything, it would not be beneficial to others or himself. And what Su Ho's 3 bodyguards could not understand after a week was what Fang Zhao, the composer from Yinzhou, was doing every day. During the day, Fang Zhao would sit there with his headphones on, fiddling with some music software. At night, he would bring the dogs out for a run. When Su Ho was herding the sheep, Fang Zhao would place a recording microphone on the sheep and dogs. He had placed one on Su Ho as well. The 3 bodyguards had to carefully examine the device placed on Su Ho's body. However, the result of the examination was that it was indeed a recording microphone. Furthermore, it was a recording microphone that was closest to the human ear. The sound it recorded was exactly what the human ear would hear under those circumstances. This made them even more confused. Eavesdropping? There was no need. What was there to eavesdrop on? And to put in so much effort? Gathering materials? What materials could be gathered? They had all heard the sounds recorded by the microphones. All sorts of sounds were mixed together, and there was no way to distinguish anything. Sometimes, they could hear the sound of the wind, but there was nothing special about it. As for the symbols that Fang Zhao had written in his notebook, they were said to be a kind of musical score, but no one could understand them. Indeed, the world of artists was different from that of ordinary people. In the blink of an eye, it was competition day. This time, besides Fang Zhao's Dongshan farm, there were teams from 7 other farms in the eastern region. A total of 8 teams were participating. Boss, how do we buy this time? Guessing the top 5? Zuiyu asked. No. Wu Yi had said that in Muzhou, those who could accurately guess the top 5 or even higher were mostly from the Su family. Fang Zhao guessing correctly once could be considered pure luck, but if he guessed correctly more than 3 times out of 10, it would attract attention. The more times he guessed correctly, the easier it was to attract attention. Fang Zhao did not want to attract any unnecessary trouble. After all, he was not short of money now. There was no need to take that risk. Furthermore, guessing fewer times did not mean that he could not make a big profit. Fang Zhao looked at the guessing rewards. Perhaps there were more teams of the same standard this time around, so the payout rates were higher than before. Guessing first place would earn a bonus of 3 times the amount of the bet. The other few prizes were the same. They were all slightly higher. This time, there are no stronger teams, or especially weak teams. Guessing the top 5 is not easy, Fang Zhao said. Zuiyu glanced at Fang Zhao. He did not know if Fang Zhao really could not guess correctly, or if he did not want to guess. He paused and asked, "Then how do you intend to bet, boss?" "No need to think too much. As long as it is a competition that we are participating in, just bet on us winning," Fang Zhao said. Zuiyu nodded his head, expressing his understanding. Just like back then, Wu Yi had done to support his cousin. Regardless of whether he thought highly of the results, he would still place some bets. But behind the scenes, there would be other schemes. Zuiyu wanted to know if Fang Zhao had other schemes behind the scenes, but he could not ask openly, so he leaned over and whispered, "Boss, how much did you bet on our own people this time?" "Everything I won in Muzhou the last time," Fang Zhao replied. "You are serious?" Zuiyu jumped in fright. Chapter 93. In the viewing hall, the people from Shanmu Farm were giving the dogs a massage. Fang Zhao, Wu Yi, and the others were in the viewing hall that had been arranged for them. As the venue was too big, they had no way of getting a full view of it. Some people would use binoculars and other tools, while some lazy people would sit in comfortable chairs and watch the screen in the room. Today, we are the third to compete. Not too bad. Calm down, young Master Su. Don't worry too much. We will let you know if anything happens, Wu Yi said. Young Master Su, you can warm up with the shepherd dogs. Just walking around and jumping around is good too. It can relieve your nervousness, and it won't be too stiff later. Follow your usual training. You should be able to finish within 7 minutes. Zuiyu glanced at Wu Yi wordlessly, then at Fang Zhao. He withdrew his gaze and hung his head in silence. Even if they could finish within 7 minutes, they would not have absolute confidence in getting first place if they could not do it for 5 minutes. If they could not get first place, the 10 million Fang Zhao had bought would be gone. The 8 participating teams from the 8 farms would draw numbers on the morning of the competition and arrange the order of appearance. The prize for guessing would be announced after that. After placing his bet, Fang Zhao took a look at the online betting situation for today's Eastern Conference match. There were also people discussing Dongshan Farm, the third to compete. Dongshan Farm? Why haven't I heard of it before? They still have over 30 points. Dongshan Farm is the old Shishan Farm. They have changed owners, even the name. Let me see who the farm owner is. Oh, a Su family member? And it's a child from the Su family? Who is this? Isn't this the Su Ho that was captured by the entertainment media some time ago? He actually bought a farm for fun? I don't care if the farm has changed owners or has changed owners. I only care about the participating dogs. I took a look. Dongshan Farm's lineup is not good. Other than dog number A, the rest are not that good. They actually have a puppy? Heh, is it because the team is not good enough? So they brought a pet dog to make up the numbers? Many people had noticed the curly-haired dog at the very end of the list of participants from Dongshan Farm. With their rich ability to identify dogs, they could tell at a glance that it wasn't a professional shepherd dog. Looking at the size of the dog in the detailed information section, wow, so small? Someone actually used a pet dog to make up the numbers? In the eyes of the people of Muzhou, pet dogs were different from working dogs. They felt that pet dogs were ornamental plants in a greenhouse. They were delicate, weak, and had no practical value. So when they saw a small curly-haired dog on the list of participants, some people lost their expectations for Dongshan Farm. To be honest, Dongshan Farm's A dog is pretty good, but it's a pity sigh. Most of the time, Dog A was the lead dog. So many people would first pay attention to Dog A in the team. Based on Dog A's abilities, they would analyze the strength of the entire team, such as their habits and so on. But Dongshan Farm's unprofessional lineup disappointed many people. In addition to the official guessing prizes, there were also some guessing contests organized by private companies. However, there was a limit to the amount of money. The highest amount could not exceed 1 million yuan. After Wu Yi placed his bet on the official platform, he went to another private company to place his bet. What was different from the official platform was that there was only one option for this private platform, to bet on the first place. The 8 teams all had different payout rates. Dongshan Farm's payout rate was probably the highest. 5-4. That is to say, if we win first place, we will get 4 times the amount we bet? Zhuyu had originally wanted to place his bet on the official platform, but seeing Wu Yi place his bet on this private platform, he switched over. After all, he was betting on his own team. Of course, he would choose the platform with the higher payout rate. Zhuyu placed a bet of 10,000 on this private platform for $50,000. Boss, aren't you going to place a bet? Zhuyu had just asked casually. Who would have thought that Fang Zhao would place another million? When all the guessing platforms stopped placing their bets, the competition venue was already making preparations. There were professionals inspecting the field. The live broadcast would broadcast this scene to let the public know that they were very serious in inspecting the field and that there would be no cheating on the field. When the first team appeared, Su-ho started spinning in circles. Not only did the warm-up not reduce his nervousness, it actually made him even more apprehensive. As soon as he stopped, he would fret and keep glancing at the timer. 6 minutes and 51 seconds. The final time of the first team is 6 minutes and 51 seconds. This is not a bad result. The commentator was talking about the sheep herding situation of the first team. Although the first team of shepherd dogs could not be considered fast, they did not make any serious mistakes. Overall, being able to finish within 7 minutes was considered not bad. At the very least, they would not end up at the end of the day. When the second team went on stage, Su-ho had to lead the team out. Wu Yi followed him out and returned after a short while, wiping the sweat from his forehead. He had maintained a calm demeanor, but this was also his first time officially participating in such a competition as one of the main competitors. Although the team that was about to go on stage was under the name of Dongshan Farm, 6 of the dogs were from his own farm. It would be strange if he could remain calm. When Wu Yi returned, the second team had already finished. He looked at the result on the display screen. 6 minutes and 43 seconds. 2 teams in a row had indeed put a lot of pressure on the third team. Although 6 minutes was not considered a good result, It was not bad either. Wui was getting more and more nervous. He felt that he did not expect his dogs to run very well. As long as they could successfully herd all the sheep into the pens, it would be fine. After all, it was their first time participating in a competition. Who knew what would happen? Wui fumbled in his pocket. There was nothing. He had been too nervous on the way over from the farm and had forgotten to stuff his pocket with straw. Now, he could not even find a straw to relieve his stress. He turned his head to the side. Fang Zhao, aren't you worried? Worried? I couldn't tell. You seem pretty calm. What are you writing? Tactics? Wui took 2 steps forward and craned his neck to take a look. Then, he did not speak. The paper beside Fang Zhao was filled with symbols that Wu Yi did not understand. Fang family musical notation symbols. Wu Yi wanted to say something, but he heard Zui Yu say, "It's about to begin." On the screen, the live broadcast paused on the instructor's platform. Su Ho was so nervous that his whole body was stiff, and his mouth was mumbling something. Young Mr. Su is probably reciting the instructions, hee. The commentator gave a meaningful laugh. I believe many people know that young Mr. Su bought what used to be Xishan Farm and changed its name to Dongshan Farm. The participating shepherd dogs are not the ones that everyone is familiar with. They are all unfamiliar faces. Oh, there is also a small pet dog. Young Mr. Su does not seem very confident, but it is understandable. It is always like this for the first time. All right, everyone, let's continue watching the competition. The countdown has begun. Let us see what kind of results young Sir Su Ho's new sheep herding team can produce. Ta, ta, ta. The sound of the countdown spread across the empty field. Out. 100 sheep rushed into the field. 7 shepherd dogs also rushed out from the 2 sides of the field. Out. We can see that in the 3rd round, Dongshan Farm's shepherd dog is using a circular herding method. Pay attention to gathering the sheep. Their positioning, it's not right. Dog A's positioning isn't right. The commentator, who was originally in high spirits, was confused. Could it be that Dongshan Farm is using a new tactic? In the enclosed viewing hall beside the field, Wu Yi was almost praying as he watched. In his heart, he kept repeating, "Don't make a mistake. Don't make a mistake in positioning." However, in the next second, Wu Yi heard the commentator's demonic voice. Dog B's positioning is wrong. It ran to the wrong side. It looked like it was nervous. It probably realized its mistake and slowed down. Let's see what young Mr. Su will do. Wu Yi slapped himself in the face. He did not dare to watch. Dog B? Little Lucky? Didn't Little Lucky usually perform well? This was the first time participating in an official sheep herding competition. The unfamiliar environment would definitely make one feel uneasy. If even Little Lucky made a mistake, wouldn't the others be even worse? Although Wu Yi was usually very talkative, at this moment, he was suddenly at a loss. His mind was in a mess, and he wanted to say something but could not. Turning his head to look at Fang Zhao, he saw that Fang Zhao had already picked up his comms device. The commentator was still speaking. Su Ho requests for on-field guidance. But it's a little too late now. The sheep that were unable to gather are starting to scatter. A group of sheep has been separated from the flock. This is the result of a sheepdog running to the wrong side. It was rare to see a group of sheep get separated. The commentator was especially excited. He wanted to jump up and down. They're going to lose the sheep. Let's see what young Mr. Su will signal to Dog B and whether Dog B can successfully return to its correct position. But halfway through his speech, he saw that Su Ho's projection did not appear at Dog B's position. Instead, he appeared in front of Dog G. Dog G? That little curly hair? Su Ho made a hand signal. As he had been too nervous, he had made a mistake at the start. Luckily, he had reacted and followed Fang Zhao's instructions and made a hand signal for Curly Hair to gather the sheep. After that, Su Ho felt a little guilty and had no confidence. Young Mr. Su's hand signal is to gather. It's hard to understand. He actually made a hand signal for a small pet dog to gather. I think he must have made a mistake. The commentator was about to analyze further when he saw the little curly-haired dog rush over like the wind. What a fast speed. It's too far away. It's too far away from the flock. It can't do it at all. Oh, gather. The scattered sheep are gathering back to the flock. The commentator wiped his sweat. He felt that since the start of the third match, he had not been able to say a complete sentence. Every time, he would suddenly change directions midway. On the grassland, the small flock of sheep that had originally looked like branches extending from the trunk of a tree ran in an arc and gathered back to the flock. Seal off the front. Gather. What a surprise. The third team actually completed the seal-off by a small dog. Chapter 94. In order to gather the sheep, one had to first block the sheep that were rushing forward and limit their speed. Then, the slower sheep at the sides and at the back would be driven to the center of the herd. This gathering process was completed during the herding process. In other words, whether it was the sheep or the dogs, they were all running the whole time. The sheep have been gathered. Release the seal. They began to herd the sheep. Positioning. Lead dog. Where's the lead dog? The commentator began to search among the 7 dogs. Dog A? That didn't seem to be the case. Dog A didn't seem to be running with the aura of a lead dog. The G that turned the tide at the critical moment just now? That's not right. Unit G's current position is at the back. Noticing the dogs on the field, the commentator realized that Dog B, which had been running in the wrong direction, had returned to the right side. Generally speaking, after gathering and herding the flock, the leader sheep would be found. Then, the leader dog would suppress the leader sheep and force it to run faster toward the destination. The leader sheep's running would lead the flock to run with it. Today was a little special. The lead dog didn't search for the lead goat, but the flock of sheep seems to be running a little fast today. The commentator's voice was filled with obvious doubt. On the pasture, the flock of sheep was speeding up, and the few shepherd dogs that had finally found their form were also speeding up. As long as they gathered together and ran in the right positions, they would be able to successfully herd the flock of sheep into the pen without any accidents. The sheep are still speeding up? The commentator signaled to his colleague with his eyes, asking what was going on. His colleague gave him the same puzzled look. They didn't see which dog used the eye suppression skill. Barking? There were indeed a few barking dogs, but they were all barking excitedly and didn't seem to be directed at the sheep. Is he going to bite a sheep to scare me? I don't see any dogs actually biting the sheep. But why did the flock of sheep seem to be chased by something terrifying? Those who were watching the live broadcast were also confused. However, those who were not participating in the competition were more concerned about the time. At this moment, Wu Yi's eyes were glued to the number on the top right corner of the screen. 4 minutes and 10 seconds, 4 minutes and 30 seconds, 4 minutes and 50 seconds, 5 points, almost there. Hang in there, my darlings. Wu Yi shouted. He could feel his adrenaline surging. 5 minutes and 10 seconds, 12 seconds, 13 seconds. He's in the pin. All into the pin. 5 minutes and 16 seconds. The third team to compete was Dongshan Farm Shepherd Dogs. 5 minutes and 16 seconds. This is too surprising. As the commentator lamented, Wu Yi, who was in the viewing gallery, was already roaring with excitement. He had not expected that the results of his first competition would be better than his cousins. This was enough for him to brag about for a year. Wu Yi wanted to share this joyous occasion with Feng Zhao, but he realized that Feng Zhao's gaze had retracted from the screen and was continuing to scribble and draw in his notebook. What a disappointment, Wu Yi thought to himself. With a turn of his feet, Wu Yi pointed at a few workers standing at the side. Quick, 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 follow me to bring my little darlings back. On the screen, Suho had already run from the instructor's platform to the gate. The instructor station was at the destination, so that the farm owners could control their dogs as soon as possible. Suho, who was too excited, had already rushed over and rolled around with the 7 dogs, his body covered with a lot of grass. Looks like young Master Su is also very satisfied with his results in the first round. Hee. The commentator was no longer laughing meaningfully like before the competition. Instead, it was a kind of hearty and kind laughter. When Suho returned to the viewing gallery with the dogs, he could not restrain the smile on his face. The goal he had set for himself was just to signal when necessary to get the shepherd dogs to finish herding and herd all the sheep into the pen. As for how much time he needed, he had not thought about it. He had not even thought about squeezing the time into 6 minutes. He had actually only managed a little more than 5 minutes. 7 days was too short. He had only forced himself to memorize the instructions and hand signals, and he had gotten along with the 7 dogs. Standing at the instructor's platform, he was still in a daze. He had not expected to have such results. If you are happy, continue watching the competition. Is 5 minutes very short? Think about Shobei Farm's 4 minutes and 6 seconds. If you want to enter the Eastern Conference Finals, you have to shorten the time to 4.5 minutes. You have to practice more when you get back, Fang Zhao said. These words were directed at Su Ho and also at Wu Yi. If Su Ho had been able to react at the first sign of trouble, he could have shortened the time by a few seconds, or even more. This time, it was because of Fang Zhao's direct guidance. Otherwise, Su Ho would not have known whether he should signal Little Lucky or the other dogs. And Wu Yi also wanted to strengthen the training of his few dogs. If it was just herding on his own pasture, it did not matter. As long as they could complete the task, it was fine. But using the previous standards would not do. He did not want to make a mistake the next time. Yes. We still have to practice when we get back. Little Lucky, come over. Wu Yi had intended to give Lucky, the shepherd dog that had made a mistake, a slap, but when his hand landed, it turned into a heavy pat on the head. He was in a good mood, and seeing that Little Lucky seemed to have realized his mistake, Wu Yi did not hit him hard. Their own team's competition was over, and the crowd's excitement gradually died down. They started to watch the competition of the teams behind them. The teams behind them mostly finished in 6 minutes to 7 minutes. Among them, one could be considered to have performed exceedingly well and had also finished in less than 6 minutes. It was just that they were 20 seconds longer than Dongshan Farm. When the 8 teams finished and saw the rankings for the day, many people were dumbfounded. None of them had imagined that Dongshan Farm could actually achieve such a result. During the competition, Dongshan Farm's tactics were too difficult to understand. Until now, they had not been able to analyze it. After the competition, there were really people who complained that there was something wrong with Dongshan Farm's dogs, especially that curly-haired little dog. They had definitely used illegal drugs. Regarding this, Wu Yi was furious. Those people who bet on the wrong team and lose money have nothing to do with us. These dogs have all been inspected before the competition. I want to sue them for slander. But because there were too many people complaining, the person in charge of the competition venue still sent a professional inspection team over. In the end, they still could not find anything. This time, no matter how many people were venting their frustrations, the people in charge of the competition venue expressed that you could question other things, but you could not question the fairness of the competition venue. Everything had to be based on evidence. Otherwise, see you in court. Having won today's first place, Wu Yi was so excited that he waved his hands. Let's go back and celebrate. Today, he was happy. One reason was that a few of his farm's dogs had won the first place in their first competition, and the other was that he had won money today. He had bet $1 million on Dongshan Farm on the private betting platform. He had not expected to win it back. He had just done it to boost his own morale. If he lost, so be it. It would be a souvenir for his first competition. He had not expected that he would actually win. Besides Wu Yi's original $1 million, he had earned an additional $4 million. As Wu Yi excitedly counted the money, he glanced at Fang Zhao from the corner of his eyes. Fang Zhao had also earned quite a lot this time, but up until now, Fang Zhao's attention was not on this. Instead, it was on his notebook. Boss, aren't you going to share your thoughts? Wu Yi asked. Thoughts? Fang Zhao raised his head. Tomorrow, I'm going to Qingqing. What for? Wu Yi and Su Ho were curious. Do you know Odd Music Company in Qingqing? Fang Zhao asked. Odd Music Company? No idea. Wu Yi shook his head. I think I've heard of it before, but I can't remember what it does. Su Ho, who had grown up in Qingqing, found the company's name familiar, but he was not sure what it did. Odd Music Company is a company that provides music recording facilities. Besides a few large entertainment companies and music academies, their recording studio has the best reviews. I just made a reservation. I'll head over tomorrow to take a look, Fang Zhao said. Music recording? Are there a lot of people? Su Ho did not understand. There's a queue. Looks like Muzhou's music scene is pretty good. Fang Zhao had heard quite a few Muzhou local-style songs since coming to Muzhou. He had even heard Wu Yi play the flute at Shanmu Farm. It was not just Muzhou local-style music. When Fang Zhao had made a reservation at a symphonic recording studio, he had discovered that it was quite popular. He still had to queue up. He did not know if he would be able to start recording tomorrow. What about curly hair? Su Ho now felt that curly hair was the most reliable of the 7 dogs. Fang Zhao was going to Qingqing. Would he bring curly hair along? Curly hair will train with you guys. Don't rely on him all the time. I heard that the difficulty of the finals will increase. Just one dog won't do, Fang Zhao said. I know. Su Ho felt that his daily dreams of showing off in the finals might really come true. The group brought the dogs back to Shanmu Farm. They were still staying there. Fang Zhao checked on the situation at Dongshan Farm through a long-distance video feed. He knew that the people he had invited over had already finished renovating the farm. New grass seeds had also been planted. Crops suitable for this season would be sown in the fields, and they would sprout soon. After settling things, Fang Zhao headed for Qingqing the next day. Zuiyu followed him as usual. Odd Music Company's building was like an upright flute. It was long and cylindrical, and many of its windows were round. Fang Zhao had made a reservation at the symphonic recording studio. When he arrived, there was still a private recording studio in front of him. The estimated time given by the other party was almost up, so Fang Zhao waited in the building's waiting hall. There were also other people waiting there. Fang Zhao saw a few young people holding books and discussing them. The cover of the book was very familiar to Fang Zhao. It was the book he and Xue Jing had written together, New Voices in Symphonic Composition. The electronic and paper versions of New Voices in Symphonic Composition had been released and had gone on sale worldwide. Fang Zhao had heard from Xue Jing that the sales of the electronic version were pretty good. The paper version was also in the process of being reprinted and received high praise. At a table not far behind Fang Zhao, a student raised his head and looked around before whispering to his companion. Now there are more people playing symphonic styles. In the past, the symphonic recording studio was often empty. Sometimes, it would even be empty to record other kinds of music. Who would have thought that we would have to queue up a day in advance? It clearly feels like this place should be very harmonious, but why does it sound so wrong? Another youngster was also at a loss. He looked at his tattooed arm and fidgeted as he studied the new tattoo on his arm. Sure duo, go and see who's behind us. If it's not anyone important, go and tell them to continue waiting, or go and queue for other recording studios. We'll extend this for another 2 hours. I feel like I found some inspiration. We'll do it again later. You go and find someone first, and I'll change the score. Zhang Hang, this is the 3rd time you've said this today. The tattooed man got up unwillingly. His uncle was an executive at Odd Music Company, so he could take a shortcut for some small matters. Normal clients could not see the background or detailed information of the person behind them. The public information on the internet was only left by the person who had made the reservation. The people at Wheat Dish Studio could only see that the person behind them had given a personal application. They could not see anything else. The tattooed man went to find someone to check the information of the person behind them. Oh, little duo is here? The person in charge of Odd Music's technical department did not need to raise his head to know who had arrived from a glance at the tattooed arm. Sure Duo's nickname was Duo. When he had grown up, Sure Duo had always felt that every time he heard people call him by that name, it was like calling a dog. He had stopped letting people call him that, and now, only familiar people would call him that. Uncle Willie, are you busy? Sure Duo laughed as he walked in. Tell me, what do you want to check this time? Your studio has exceeded the time limit. There was no blame in Willie's tone. Exceeding the time limit was actually not a big deal. All he had to do was apologize to the person behind him and pay some money. I want to see who is behind us. I want to talk to him and get him to wait a little longer or queue up at another recording studio, Sure Duo said. Willie understood. Sure Duo wanted to know the other party's identity and more detailed information. Let me see. The person behind you in the queue is booked by an outsider, Willie said. Willie said, it's better if they're not from this continent. Don't worry about people from other continents. Locals come first. Just let them queue for another recording studio. However, this name sounds familiar. I think I've heard it somewhere before. Is he famous? What's his name? Duo asked. Fang Zhao. Fang Zhao. Duo did not care if it was against the rules or not. He rushed over and pushed Willie aside. He squeezed in front of the screen and carefully looked at the information and picture of the person who had made the reservation. Do you know this person? Willie asked. Duo took a deep breath and took a closer look. After making sure he was not mistaken, he said, Can I see the surveillance in the lobby? That won't do. Willie shook his head. According to company rules, other than the technicians in the control room, no one else was allowed to view the surveillance. This was an invasion of privacy. The nature of the company meant that they were stricter in this area. If not for the fact that Duo had a senior executive backing him, Willie would not have agreed to help. Hey, you still haven't said who Fang Zhao is? Willie asked. Duo did not bother replying. He turned and rushed out, all the way to the lobby. He ran too fast and had to stop suddenly. The friction between the soles of his shoes and the floor produced a sharp screech. The ear-piercing screech made many people in the lobby look over, including Fang Zhao. Duo scanned the lobby. His gaze paused on Fang Zhao for a moment, then he turned and ran, straight up the stairs and into the recording studio. Guess who's behind us in the queue? Guess who I just saw? Duo was practically shouting excitedly. Zhang Hang and Ding Xiaotao were discussing where they had gone wrong with the arrangement, but after being yelled at by Duo, they were scared out of their wits. The two of them glared at Duo as if they wanted to skin him alive. Duo, who had rushed into the recording studio, did not seem to care. He continued excitedly, Fang Zhao. That Fang Zhao. Which Fang Zhao? Zhang Hang and Ding Xiaotao both stuttered. Duo picked up the copy of New Voices in Symphonic Composition and forcefully pointed at the name of the deputy editor on the cover. This one. Zhang Hang and Ding Xiaotao looked at each other and ran out at the same time. The light was right in front of them, yet they were still blindly searching. Duo also followed them out. He did not forget to show off in his friend group. Today, I met a living Fang Zhao. Elsewhere in Qingcheng, in a certain student dormitory at Muzhou Music Academy. The fuck? Fang Zhao came to Muzhou. Who did you say? Fang Zhao really came to Muzhou? Duo said in the group. They met during the recording at Odd Music. Let's go to Odd Music. All of you are going? I still have elective classes for the next 2 periods. What do I do? Skip class. In a certain classroom in the teaching block, the music arrangement teacher walked into the classroom and realized that less than a third of the students were seated. He was puzzled. This time, there were not that many people who had applied for long-distance classes, and he had not received any requests for leave. Where are they? There are so many people. Where did they go? The music arrangement teacher asked. Teacher, they all skipped class to see Fang Zhao. A student replied. Outrageous. Even idol chasing can't. Who? Who do you think they went to see? The music arrangement teacher was stunned. They said they went to see Fang Zhao. Chapter 96. The news that Fang Zhao, the deputy editor of New Voices in Symphonic Composition, had come to Muzhou and was recording at Odd Music Company spread like wildfire in Muzhou's music circles. The fastest to react were students from music academies who were interested in symphonic music. Many skipped classes to rush over to Odd Music Company. Thus, on this seemingly normal afternoon without a sheep-herding competition, many cars suddenly appeared at Odd Music Company's entrance. Odd Music Company's security personnel did not think much of it at first. Recently, there had been a lot of people booking the recording studio. It was normal for there to be more today, but very quickly, as more and more people arrived, and all of them asked the same question. Where is Fang Zhao? Fang Zhao? Who is Fang Zhao? They were just security personnel in charge of the company's security and did not know much about the music circles. They knew a little about the popular singers and celebrities, but they had never heard of other musicians. It was only when a company official informed them that they found out that a rather impressive person had arrived. In the waiting hall, the 3 members of Wheat Dish Studio had already run up to Fang Zhao. Zuiyu's professional antenna had already been erected when Duo had glanced over. He had been prepared to stop the 3, but Fang Zhao waved his hands, indicating that there was no need to stop them. Hello, Teacher Fong. We are fourth-year students from Muzhou Music Academy. The three of them showed their student IDs to Fong Zhao. Ding Xiaodao snatched the book from Jiang Hang's hands, flipped open the cover, and smiled shyly. Teacher Fong, can I have your autograph on this? After thinking for a few seconds, Ding Xiaodao decided to address him as teacher. Those who wrote textbooks and imparted knowledge could indeed be addressed as teacher. Fong Zhao smiled at the three, took the pen and book, and signed his name. Jiang Hang, who was in the middle of the trio, asked Fong Zhao expectantly, "We are also composing now. We are trying to fuse symphonic music with electronic music, but we have run into some difficulties and problems. Can we ask a few questions?" "Go ahead," Fong Zhao replied. Jiang Hang told Fong Zhao about the process of composing the score and some of their thoughts when fusing it. "Have you written the score?" Fong Zhao asked. Yes, but it doesn't sound right, and the fusion isn't good." "Can I take a look at your score?" Sure. Jiang Hang handed over the score that had been messed up, not the slightest bit worried that Fong Zhao would copy their score. What a joke. This person was Fong Zhao. Did he need to copy their incomplete and messy score? However, looking at the paper that had been modified many times, the three of them were a little embarrassed at this time. "Why don't I sort it out first and write a new copy of the revised score?" "This one doesn't look good," Jiang Hang said. "No need." Fong Zhao studied the score in his hands seriously. Although the score looked messy and there were many changes on the paper, this draft, which had been revised many times, allowed Fong Zhao to see the three's train of thought. "Lend me the pen again," Fong Zhao said. "Sure, feel free to use it." Ding Xiaodao hurriedly fished out the pen from her pocket and handed it to Fong Zhao. Fong Zhao used the pen to circle a few spots on the paper and analyze them one by one, explaining his thoughts. Jiang Hang and the other two listened attentively. They realized that not only had Fong Zhao deduced their train of thought based on the score, he had also accurately pointed out the areas that they had felt were not right during the process of writing the score and provided a few ideas. As for what to do, it was up to them to complete. And as Fong Zhao was explaining to them, the people in the waiting hall also looked over curiously. Hearing Jiang Hang and the other two call out Teacher Fong, some people guessed that it was the Fong Zhao they knew. Looking at the copy of New Voices in Symphonic Composition that Fong Zhao had signed, they were even more certain of their guesses. "It's actually Fong Zhao," someone exclaimed. "Who is Fong Zhao? Is he famous?" The people in the other section all had blank looks on their faces. "He must be the son of some rich and powerful family. He even has bodyguards by his side." "Not necessarily. Maybe it's some celebrity. Our Muzhou celebrities have never seen this person before." "A celebrity from another continent? Is a celebrity from another continent worth all this attention?" They saw the group of youngsters eager to kneel down and lick Fong Zhao's boots and were very disdainful. The people in the symphony section could not stand it anymore. "You guys play pop music, right? It's normal that you don't know him. Nowadays, people who play symphonic and electronic music all know the name Fong Zhao. Have you heard of New Voices in Symphonic Composition? He was the one who co-wrote it. I think I even heard a famous musician say yesterday that symphonic and electronic music could usher in a wave of popularity. Look over there. They are all booked in the symphony section's recording studio." A slightly older person asked in astonishment, "Are you talking about Yinzhou's Silver Wings Fong Zhao? The Fong Zhao who composed the 100-year period of destruction and received an invitation from Fiery Bird to co-write New Voices in Symphonic Composition with great master Xuejing." Even if they were not interested in the symphonic genre, they still knew about the composing of a book that had been spreading like wildfire in the circles. "I was wondering why that person looked so familiar. It really is him. No way, I'm going to get an autograph too." "Me too. Wait for me. I'll let everyone know in the group first." In the past, they had set up their new recording equipment and equipment here. It was a place for publicity and promotion. Now, it had been vacated for a temporary meet and greet session. Fong Zhao would answer questions for an hour and then sign books for people who brought them over. Before heading to the conference hall, Fong Zhao gave Duan Qinji a call and told her about the situation. He had cooperated with the principal of Muzhou Music Academy to give a lecture at the venue arranged by the principal. As there were many industry insiders interested in this aspect, the arranged venue could not accommodate so many people, so the lecture would be broadcasted online. In Muzhou, the Muzhou Music Academy would have the exclusive live broadcast. In Yinzhou, the live broadcast would be arranged by Silver Wing. Currently, the live broadcast channels in other continents were still in discussion, but in Yinzhou, Silver Wing would be arranged by Feng Zhao. Duan Qianji, who had received the news, was naturally very happy. She immediately arranged for a live broadcast channel and made an announcement about the live broadcast on the official website. After issuing a series of orders, Duan Qianji sat in her office and watched a group of people discussing online. She smiled. He really went out to expand his business. Xue Jing had been invited to various places to give lectures because of new voices in symphonic composition. As Feng Zhao had signed a contract with a company, he was not completely free. He also had things to do, so he did not follow Xue Jing. This time, Xue Jing had received the news that Feng Zhao had been caught in Muzhou. He was quite supportive of Feng Zhao personally giving a lecture, so he immediately contacted Feng Zhao. When the time comes for your lecture, there will surely be many industry veterans, but you don't have to be nervous. Just like when you were discussing with me, just say whatever you want. I have already spoken to a few old friends over in Muzhou. They will not ask tricky questions and will help you when necessary. Xue Jing used the tone of a senior taking care of a junior and exhorted many things. When Xue Jing finally finished speaking, Feng Zhao said, "Thank you. I'm not nervous." Hey, when the time comes and 1,000 pairs of eyes are staring at you, will you still be able to keep your cool? When is the lecture scheduled? Tomorrow morning. So soon? Don't you need to prepare? There's no need. I still have things to do after the lecture. You little rascal. Forget it. It's your first lecture. Don't be too stressed. I'm not stressed. The next day, Feng Zhao came out of the accommodation the school had arranged for him. There was already someone waiting there to lead him straight to the lecture venue. The lecture venue was an exchange center. Usually, some reputable professors and masters would come here to give presentations, give lectures, and so on. It was rare that the main lecturer today was a young man who was not much different from the school's students. The principal of Muzhou Music Academy brought over 10 questions that he had picked from a variety of questions from the students. He saw Feng Zhao sitting backstage, watching a sheep-herding competition. Is he watching videos to relieve his stress, or is he just born simple-minded? The principal thought to himself. When it was about time, Feng Zhao walked into the venue and stepped onto the podium. He calmly scanned the packed venue, gave a few simple opening remarks, and went straight to the main topic. Feng Zhao was not the approachable type of teaching, but he was able to use simple words to explain the problem more thoroughly and make it easier to understand. He even used a few famous Muzhou songs as examples. Even people who had never come into contact with the symphonic genre would be able to understand quite a bit. Feng Zhao's examples were not limited to Muzhou songs. He used music from various continents to give the audience a sense of immersion. Oh, so it can be used like this? Go back and try it out. Wow, it can actually incorporate such sounds? Perhaps it can be used in the songs I compose. Why didn't I think of it? How does he know so much? The audience listening to the lecture and watching the live broadcast had all sorts of emotions churning in their hearts. Feng Zhao's words and actions imperceptibly gave off a sense of pressure. The school leaders sitting in the first few rows shifted uncomfortably. The music arrangement teacher also straightened his back. Why do I feel a little nervous? The lecturer was not nervous, but the audience was nervous. Weird. In a venue that could seat 1,000 people, the first 10 rows were filled with school leaders, teachers, and celebrities from all over Muzhou who were interested in this field. Behind them were the students. Many students had not managed to grab a spot and could only watch the live broadcast. The school's forums were also in heated discussion. I finally know why Feng Zhao can reach such heights despite being only 2 years older than us. Look at him. Just standing there. That aura. TSK. It reminds me of our former form teacher. He actually said everything. Isn't he afraid that those things will be trampled on by others after they learn them? Do you know what certain people in the industry say about Feng Zhao? Stupid Feng. They're talking about how Feng Zhao imparted all sorts of experience and techniques without holding back. However, Watching Feng Zhao's lecture today, I feel that Feng Zhao doesn't seem like someone who doesn't understand how to maximize benefits. It's just that he doesn't care and isn't afraid. Impressive. Those who had previously doubted Feng Zhao's ability and doubted Feng Zhao's abilities only had one word in mind when watching the live broadcast: style of a master. Xuejing, who had been invited to Huangzhou for an exchange, was also watching the live broadcast. A few people who were close to Xuejing were astonished. Tisk, old Xue, this little fellow speaks better than you. Xuejing did not feel the slightest bit angry. Instead, he had a gratified tone as he beamed. Yesterday, when he told me he wasn't nervous, I didn't believe him. Now I know. I feel that this little fellow was born for this line of work. At Shamu Farm, Suho, who was training on the grassland, browsed the news during a break and noticed that the headlines mentioned Feng Zhao. He actually became a trending topic before me. Chapter 97. Feng Zhao's lecture at the Muzhou Music Academy was a success. The number of views online was proof of that. The college's principal smiled until the creases on his face deepened. He was incomparably pleased with his wise decision. Among the music majors around the world, those who were interested in symphonic music made up at least a tenth, if not half. And those who tuned in would surely have some impression of the name Muzhou Music Academy. This was the greatest success. However, time was limited, and there was a limit to what could be taught in one lecture. Many people felt that time was up before they could get their fill. The college principal started thinking of collaborating with Feng Zhao again. Didn't Feng Zhao want to record music? Our school has a recording studio. You don't have to queue up at Odd Music. I can open up the best recording studio for you. However, there were other people who had the same idea. The boss of Odd Music had personally come over to invite Feng Zhao. Odd Music's boss only smiled at the college principal's words. Old friend, your school's outdated equipment should be left for the students to use. Professional recording will still have to be done here at Odd Music. You can say that in all of Muzhou, the best recording equipment is at Odd Music. Didn't you also bring your granddaughter over to record after seeing us buy new equipment? Don't fight with me over this. Odd Music's boss said that as long as Feng Zhao was willing, he could arrange for a recording studio at Odd Music, and it would be free. Even though the company's public recording studios were full, there were still 2 recording studios reserved for their own people in case they needed to record music urgently. The equipment used was also the latest and best. Odd Music's boss was very cordial. When he invited Feng Zhao, he was also very polite and offered many favorable conditions. Feng Zhao had no reason to reject him. Have you found a symphony orchestra's teacher, Xiaofeng? If not, how about I recommend a few? Odd Music's boss asked with a beaming smile. Among those attending the lecture were key members of a few Muzhou symphony orchestras. They had been waiting for Feng Zhao to finish his lecture so they could worm their way in. When Odd Music's boss said this, those who had been listening eagerly rushed over to recommend their own orchestras. Because Muzhou's musical atmosphere was not as strong as Yinzhou's or Laizhou's, there were not many symphony orchestras, and Muzhou did not have the slightest reputation globally. Every opportunity to collaborate with a famous composer was fought over. Now that Feng Zhao had come to Muzhou, a few large orchestras had started to fight over him. It was rare that the symphonic genre was starting to gain popularity among young people, and Feng Zhao happened to be the key figure driving this wave. How could they let go of such a good opportunity? The boss of Odd Music Company stood to the side and did not say much. He pretended not to see the few people who were signaling him with their eyes and stood there smiling without saying a word, waiting for Feng Zhao to make his choice. Sometimes, saying too much would seem deliberate, and it was easy to arouse disgust. He had already fought for the benefits, and everything else could be put aside. Feng Zhao swept a glance at the people who had come over to recommend themselves. Some of them were the leaders of their respective bands, while others were chief musicians of their musical groups. What's the name of your band? How many are there now? What's the situation? Feng Zhao looked at one of them. I am Delay, the leader of the SoundCloud Orchestra. I am also the orchestra's first violin. Our orchestra has been around for 10 years, and now we have more than 80 people. Delay excitedly reported the details of his own orchestra. His orchestra was considered one of the larger orchestras in Qingqing. Recently, The market had started to pick up, and he had been thinking of recruiting more people. All these years, they had not had a good opportunity to collaborate with a famous composer. It was not a matter of ability. The few large orchestras in Muzhou were actually comparable in ability, but their luck had always been bad. He had not expected that Feng Zhao would actually pick them this time, so of course he would do his best to recommend himself. An orchestra of more than 80 people was indeed considered large in Muzhou, where the symphony atmosphere was not strong. However, compared to other continents like Yenzhou, it was really not enough. For example, Silver Wing had an orchestra of more than 100 people, and there were still many outstanding candidates who had not squeezed in. Even if they were missing someone, they could quickly replace them. If they wanted to expand, they could expand at any time. These were all departments that were supported by large amounts of funds. But it was different here. Although there were many orchestras in Muzhou, they were all small ones. The entire continent could not produce more than 5 large orchestras. Although they claimed to be professional orchestras, according to global standards, they could not be considered one. The performance season was the first step toward professionalism for an orchestra. The so-called performance season was the basic cycle in which the orchestra's performing arts were born. The orchestra's artistic planning revolved around the performance season. Outstanding professional orchestras all had performance seasons, but Muzhou orchestras did not. In the past, Muzhou orchestras had not been valued. Occasionally, they would be invited to perform at some large farm owner's celebration banquet, or they would be invited by the organizers of a competition to perform at the opening or closing to liven up the atmosphere. That was all. Feng Zhao could not use Yenzhou's standards to judge the quality of Muzhou's orchestra. The reason he had picked Delay was because when he had been lecturing, Delay had listened very seriously and had a strong sense of dedication. When it came to music, his gaze was filled with passion. Compared to the others, his passion was even purer. Although there was some utilitarianism involved, music fanatics who did not eat the food of the common people were rare in this world. It was hard to find one in a million. To find such a pure person in a crowd was already not bad. To prove the ability of his own orchestra, Delay had gathered all the members of the orchestra and performed a few songs in a recording studio arranged by Odd Music. Although it could not compare to the highly paid orchestras of Silver Wing, it was not too much of a fault. After Delay's orchestra had performed, Feng Zhao asked, "Did you compose these songs yourself?" "Yes, compared to you guys, I am still far behind. I learned a lot from this lecture. I will definitely improve in the future." The middle-aged Delay was a little reserved in front of Feng Zhao, who was a few decades younger than him. His tone was cautious and expectant, like a student showing off in front of a teacher. Since Delay had already discovered the areas that needed improvement, Feng Zhao did not say anything about the songs. Instead, he asked, "Do you plan to develop the orchestra in a professional direction?" Yes, but before that, the orchestra still has a long way to go." Delay did not hide his ambition. When he had formed the orchestra, he had wanted to be Muzhou's first professional orchestra in the new era. Feng Zhao patted Delay on the shoulder and said encouragingly, "Not bad." Delay felt his back straighten. He could not help but smile. However, when he turned around to arrange the orchestra's affairs, he regained the dignity of a leader. Many members of the SoundCloud Orchestra were puzzled. "Our leader is so imposing when he talks to us. Why is he like a primary school student in front of that kid Feng Zhao?" Feng Zhao quickly started recording the songs. Many times, the composer would act as the conductor, and Feng Zhao was no exception. But because of his high standards, the recording didn't go very smoothly at the beginning. Things gradually got better. Zhuyu could not understand why. If he had a few days to spare, he might as well return to Silver Wing and let the orchestra play. Wouldn't that be easier? Maybe he would have finished recording long ago. The cost of flying transport? With all the money Feng Zhao had won in sheep-herding competitions, would he care about that? But Feng Zhao did not. He stayed in Muzhou and used a local orchestra and recording studio. In 10 days, after the first 7 days were barely finished, they made up for it in the last 3 days. This was only the initial recording. To complete the music, post-production was still required. But Feng Zhao did not need to stay in Muzhou. After signing a confidentiality contract, the members of the SoundCloud Orchestra and Odd Music Company would not divulge the contents of the song before it was released to the public. Are you done recording? Xue Jing contacted Feng Zhao for the third time. Feng Zhao had been busy recording the past few days, so they had not contacted much. After calculating the time, Xue Jing called Feng Zhao. Just finished, Feng Zhao said. Hurry over to Huangzhou when you're done. We're just waiting for you. Xue Jing had decided to go on a global lecture tour with Feng Zhao. After watching Feng Zhao's live broadcast, Xue Jing had made up his mind. He had already discussed it with the people from the Music Association and finalized the itinerary. All that was left was to wait for Feng Zhao. After Feng Zhao finished recording in Muzhou, he packed his things and brought Zuyu to Huangzhou. Curly Hair continued to stay at Shanmu Farm to train and compete with Su Ho. Before leaving, Feng Zhao gave Wu Yi 10 million to bet on Dongshan Farm for every competition. The global lecture tour was to promote the book Xue Jing had written. It was also an opportunity for Feng Zhao. How many people in the industry at Feng Zhao's age could go on a global lecture tour? Completing a lecture tour would add a layer of gold to Feng Zhao's resume. In many people's eyes, Feng Zhao was Xue Jing's last disciple. Otherwise, why would Xue Jing go through so much trouble to help this junior? People close to Xue Jing in the industry had asked him this question in private. Last disciple? Are you talking about Feng Zhao? Xue Jing found it funny. Are you overestimating me or underestimating that kid? Xue Jing's reply was also spread, but no one believed it. They all felt that Xue Jing was just helping Feng Zhao. Even if Feng Zhao's lectures were not bad, it did not mean that he had really reached such heights. Of the 12 continents in the world, the main lecture stops were the 8 Chang continents. Because of their special characteristics, the music atmosphere in the 4 special continents was not as strong as the 8 Chang continents. For example, even though Feng Zhao had already stirred up heated discussions in Muzhou's music circles, compared to other news in Muzhou, the public's attention was not as high. But people in the 8 Chang continents were different. There were more people paying attention to Xue Jing and Feng Zhao's global lecture tour. They had already planned to attend the lectures. It was rare to have a fool willing to impart everything. Who wouldn't want to listen? After all, it did not cost much money. It also saved one the trouble of spending time researching. Such a good thing, why wouldn't one go? After Feng Zhao arrived in Huangzhou, he had no time to stroll around. The next day, he followed Xue Jing around the various continents. The lecture stops were mostly at higher education institutions. Continents with a strong music atmosphere would have a few more lectures. Although the lecture tours of some comprehensive institutions were not as popular as those of music-related institutions, there were still many people who listened. The person in charge of the interview was very helpless. You brat, at least give me more reaction. Feng Zhao did not pay much attention to the mixed reviews in the industry. He was very busy. How would he have the time to look through the reviews of everyone in the industry? He had no interest in watching those. When Feng Zhao was not teaching, he was always busy. Xue Jing realized that Feng Zhao did not have as much time to teach as he did and did not have as many meetings to attend, yet he was even busier than Xue Jing. What are you preparing? Xue Jing asked. Matters over at Muzhou, Feng Zhao replied. Xue Jing knew that Feng Zhao had partnered with a friend from Muzhou to buy a farm. Xue Jing did not have much interest in farms. Every year, many people would send him some Muzhou agricultural products, and he did not really care for those agricultural products, so he did not ask too much. Feng Zhao really wasn't lying. He was really very busy. He was editing videos. He had to watch the videos sent over from Dongshan Farm and Shanmu Farm, then edit a portion of them. After that, he would watch the edited video again and listen to it along with the music before making changes. Editing videos and music. Feng Zhao had roped in people from Silverwing's Virtual Projects department to help out. Every piece of work that combined video and music needed to go through many revisions to achieve a satisfactory artistic effect. Other than that, Feng Zhao would receive reports every day. We would also send him some messages, giving him a summary of the situation. Today, Wu Yi called Feng Zhao. That dog of yours. Wu Yi wanted to say something but stopped. What's up? Feng Zhao asked. I told you before. Shepherd dogs have very strong learning abilities, Wu Yi said. MMHM. I used to think that your little curly hair did not know how to herd sheep. After coming over, he would surely learn a few skills from the dogs on my farm. Fang Zhao indicated that he was listening attentively, but now I realized that I was wrong. Ridiculously wrong. All the dogs on my farm have been led astray by that curly hair of yours. Previously, when Fang Zhao was in Muzhou, he would bring Curly Hair out for a run every night. After Fang Zhao's global lecture tour, Curly Hair retained this habit every day. At night, when other dogs were asleep, he would go out for a run. Fang Zhao had told Wu Yi about this. As long as Curly Hair did not run out of the boundaries of the farm, he could let Curly Hair do as he pleased. This was also training. At first, Wu Yi personally monitored the surveillance, but after he got used to it, he just reminded the employees on night duty to pay attention. Until one day, when Bingo and a few other dogs on the farm curiously followed Curly Hair out. Every night, the run changed from one dog to a team of dogs. In the first few days, Wu Yi did not see much of a problem. He even thought that this might be a help to the dogs on his farm. Running more would strengthen their physique, and it would help them in the Eastern and Western region finals. Later, the employees on night duty told Wu Yi that these dogs had actually gone to catch field mice. It was Bingo who had started it. As the previous boss of the farm, Bingo was very familiar with the farm, and naturally, he was familiar with field mice. Things developed very quickly. This team of dogs would run out every night to catch field mice. Wu Yi was very vexed. That was something for mousetraps. What were these shepherding dogs doing there? Wu Yi had specially hired a team of veterinarians to take care of them to prevent parasites, viruses, and other external factors from affecting their participation in the competition. And the news that Fang Zhao received from Su Ho was like this: Master Zhao, we won. Today was very nerve-wracking. Our guidance was not wrong. Hopefully, we can maintain today's form next time. We won again. No mistakes. We won again. We lost today and only got 4th place. We only added 1 point. Bingo ate a field mouse and ended up with diarrhea the next day. He did not perform well. Wu Yi said that the 10 million he bet for Master Zhao today is gone. But we earned a lot from the first few rounds. Even if we lose one round, we will still earn it back. Just one more first place and we can squeeze into the top 10. Top 10. Next target, top 8. Just one more round. The competition is not small. The other teams are also getting high scores in every round. Top 8. Top 8. Top 8 secured. Tickets to the finals in hand. Ha 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 ha. In the past 2 months, Dongshan Farm's points in the Eastern Division rapidly rose to the top. Dongshan Farm's reputation also grew. Everyone knew that Dongshan Farm's lead dog was a small curly-haired dog, and it was especially powerful. With the increase in strength and reputation, the payout rates naturally became lower. Eventually, if Wu Yi did not have the intention of supporting his own people, he would not have placed any more bets. It was pointless. Following the rise in reputation, many people in the eastern region knew that Su Ho had bought the farm and changed the name of Xishan Farm to Dongshan Farm, cooperating with Shanmu Farm in the competition. Of course, there were also people who mocked Su Ho for buying an empty farm and having to seek help from other farms. It was simply a disgrace to the Su family. Su Ho didn't care about those words. What he wanted the most right now was to win one victory after another. Every victory was a boost to his confidence. Probably because they had run laps together, herded sheep together, caught field mice together, and endured scolding together. The comradeship between the 7 dogs had deepened day by day. The most direct manifestation of this was that now, even if Su Ho did not apply for on-the-spot guidance, Curly Hair just had to bark and the other dogs would quickly react. Only the top 8 teams in the preliminaries would be able to decide which 4 teams would qualify to participate in the Eastern Division's sheep-herding competition. However, this time, the top 80 and 90 teams in Muzhou's Eastern Division had the same points, so they would all enter the Eastern Division's finals. When the time came, the top 4 teams would be chosen to continue competing with the 4 teams from Muzhou's Western Division. Su Ho was so excited that he wished he could run laps in the field to enter the finals with the 7th place in the Eastern Division. Master Zhao, can you make it for the Eastern Division's finals? Su Ho asked over the long-distance call.
Yes.
Hey, Master Zhao. Actually, what I wanted to ask is, That, didn't you say before that if we could squeeze into the Eastern Division's finals, when the time came, we would use the song you composed as the background music? Hee hee, I filmed a pretty good advertisement these past 2 days. Master Zhao, have you composed the song? Su-ho knew that Feng Zhao had recorded it in Qingxing, but it had not been completed before he had embarked on a global lecture tour. Su-ho did not know if it had been completed or not. Let me see the video you filmed yourself, Feng Zhao said. Su-ho sent Feng Zhao the video he had filmed over the past 2 days that he felt was the best. When he opened the video, Feng Zhao felt a strong gust of Chinibyu. Su-ho thought that his parkour was very cool, but people watching would think, this kid is like a convulsing sheep. Still use mine, Feng Zhao said. Master Zhao, you also produced it? When did you film it? When you don't know. Su-ho suddenly had a bad feeling about Feng Zhao's reply. Can I have a look first? Was he handsome? Was he cool? Would it cause a scream? This was what Su-ho wanted to know the most. Sure, but don't spread it yet. Could it be that he quarreled with his family? Wu-yi was puzzled. He had asked Su-ho a few times, but every time he asked, he realized that Su-ho seemed to be very embarrassed to answer. He stammered and did not say anything. However, seeing that Su-ho's training condition was all right, Wu-yi did not bother anymore. This was probably how children were at this age. Their personalities were not formed yet, so it was normal for their emotions to be unstable. The next day, early in the morning, everyone boarded the aircraft and headed for the Eastern Conference Finals. Compared to the regular season, the venue for the finals was much larger. There would definitely be a lot of celebrities watching, and some old farm owners who had won a lot of honors would also be there to comment. Not only that, but the number of people watching the live broadcast would also skyrocket. During the regular season, it was usually people from the Eastern Conference who paid attention to the Eastern Conference Finals, and people from the Western Conference Finals. However, when it came to the regional finals, everyone in Muzhou would be watching. People from the Western Conference also wanted to know which 4 teams would be competing against their Western Conference star teams. A few days ago, Su-ho had received a message from his classmates in Qingxing. Qingxing was located in the central region between the Eastern and Western Conference. It had been split into the Eastern Conference and then the Western Conference, so before this, people from Qingxing had paid more attention to the Western Conference finals. Many of them had only found out from the media that Su-ho had actually made it to the finals after buying the farm. Brother Ho, you can do it. We are all watching. Young Master Su, I bet on your team to win. You have to give it your all. Young Master Su, yesterday I overheard our form teacher say that if you can make it to the Eastern and Western Conference finals, he will not fuss about your numerous absences. As long as you do not fail your exams, it will be fine. People from Muzhou paid attention to the sheep herding competition. During the crucial competition days, many people at work or at school could watch the competition live. Most company and school leaders would approve. This kind of thing could not happen in other continents. Seeing this, Su-ho, who had trained his composure with great difficulty through the regular season, started to get nervous again. Those watching the competition were not only his classmates and teachers, but also other members of the Su family. The Su family might not pay attention to the regular season, but on such an important day like the Eastern Conference Finals, they would definitely watch. He was a little excited, but also a little apprehensive. When he thought about the promotional video, his feelings became even more complicated. He had already submitted the video to the organizers yesterday. He had watched it a few times, and every time he watched it, his feelings would be different. However, compared to Su-ho's complicated feelings, compared to Wu-yi and the others' nervousness and anticipation, the shepherd dogs were still the same. To them, the difference between the Eastern Conference Finals and the regular season was just that the venue was a little bigger, the grass was a little more undulating, and the difficulty of herding was a little higher. What was more nervous? They already did not understand. In any case, they just had to follow Curly Hair when the time came. Curly Hair lay at Feng Zhao's feet, licking his front paws attentively. Occasionally, when someone mentioned him, he would raise his head and glance at them before continuing to lie down. Su-ho received a few more messages from his cousin. What she meant was that many members of the Su family were watching the live broadcast. She had already taken out money to bet on Dongshan farm winning. As for how much she had bet, she did not say. His cousin also sent a message to Su Ho. All the best, little fatty Su. Su Ho was on the verge of tears. He was still young and could not handle too much pressure. After thinking about it, Su Ho found an excuse to enter the single lounge and watch the promotional video twice more. Much better. Wu Yi had just realized that Su Ho's state today was too tense. He had wanted to have a chat with him to ease his nerves. Although he was also nervous, as an elder, he had to act calm in front of the younger generation. He had not expected that when Su Ho came out again, he would be full of fighting spirit and in a very positive mood. This caused Wu Yi to swallow back all the words he had prepared. In the viewing halls of every participating team, as well as those in other viewing halls, they could see the images displayed on the screens in their respective viewing halls and hear the sound coming from the hall sound equipment. Muzhou people were nouveau riches. Even if they did not understand hardware, they used very good ones. This was because when they did not know how to differentiate between good and bad ones, they would buy the more expensive ones. Before the competition, there would be an introduction of each farm team. This was a very good time to advertise. There was no need to pay advertising fees, and many people in the entire continent were paying attention. Su Ho had drawn 8th in the order of appearance, which was quite close to the end. The promotional video was also played in accordance with the order of appearance. The first 7 teams' introductions were similar to the previous ones. They were all famous big farms. The farm's brand had to be spread, so the ones that occupied the most time in the promotional video were the farm owner, the team's celebrity dog, and the farm's various agricultural products. Almost there. Wu Yi was a little excited. He had not seen the promotional video, and Su Ho had not shown it to him. However, Su Ho had told him that other than the participating dogs, the video would also show Shanmu Farm's entrance sign. Wu Yi would also appear. That was enough. Next up is a team that suddenly rose to prominence in this year's Eastern sheep herding competition. I believe everyone is already familiar with them. Furthermore, this farm owner is very young. Their rise was somewhat unexpected, but now they have qualified for the finals based on their own strength. The commentator's voice rang out. Following that, the video that Dongshan Farm had submitted was played. Those who were paying attention to the competition perked up, especially those from Muzhou's western region. They did not know much about the eastern region teams, but they were curious about Su Ho. How would little fatty Su act cool in the promotional video? Would he declare war on his half-siblings? Just thinking about it made me excited. At the start of the promotional video, it was Su Ho's own voice. I want to participate in the sheep herding competition. I want to participate in the finals. This was something Su Ho had said many times in the past. Everyone who was watching the live broadcast saw a youthful and childish face appear on the screen. The naive and stubborn words of a child, as well as the mysterious confidence in his eyes, as if tomorrow was within his grasp. Even if one did not know Su Ho's name or background, just by looking at the image, many people could tell that this was a Chinibu pampered by a rich family. And to be able to say participate in the finals, it was a display of not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth, and the ignorant are fearless. Behind the image was a trumpet sound. It had an absurd heaviness to it. It was not all that passionate, and the slow, frail sound of the piano was not a good omen. Another sentence appeared in the video. I borrowed money to buy a farm, but it is not what I expected. Su Ho had only appeared a month after the sheep herding competition had started. He had bought a participating farm to qualify for the finals. This sort of thing happened every year and was not uncommon. And before Dongshan Farm had become famous, people had only been able to get a glimpse of what had once been Shishan Farm. Only a small portion of well-informed people had been able to obtain limited information from other people. But after Dongshan Farm had risen to prominence, even more people had wanted to take a look. That place had long changed. What had Shishan Farm looked like when Su Ho had bought it? After the sentence appeared and disappeared, the image changed. A well-dressed young master of a rich family, accompanied by his bodyguards, rode in a high-class personal flying transport and arrived at a remote and spacious farm in the west of Muzhou. The tune of a flute had been added to the music. It was a flute made of clay that Muzhou people were very familiar with. It was an ancient method that was rarely used in other continents. At most, people bought it as a souvenir. Amidst the lonely and desolate sound of the flute, on the image, a dilapidated wooden fence surrounded an empty plot of land that did not even have many weeds. 2 or 3 dilapidated courtyards had been exposed to wind and sun for who knew how long. The door frame was swaying in the wind, and a few dispirited dogs were lying on the side, sleeping soundly. Under the greenish dusk, the faded Shishan farm sign erected high above the mountains in the distance looked small and laughable. 2 pictures appeared on the image. One was information about Shishan Farm that had been publicized online, and the other was the first time Suho had seen Shishan Farm's true appearance after he had bought it. At the same time, a large sum of money had appeared, as well as the name of the original owner of Shishan Farm. However, everyone knew that this person had probably slipped away long ago. There was no concealment. This was something Suho had suggested to add, like a person showing the scars of failure to the curious. Although it was an understatement, people could tell what had happened with a glance. Is this the rumored scam of young Master Su? Suho was still too impatient. Children are like this, easily impulsive. People who saw this seemed disgust. At that time, there were many people on the internet who had the mentality of looking at an idiot when they saw that incident. The solo of the wind instrument, the sound of the keys and strings quietly broke down the chord accompaniment, and in the low sound of the violin, some faint harmonies were like a slow sigh. In the image, Suho's eyes, which had been full of anticipation, turned gray, like a fish that had leapt into the air, thinking that it would reach the dragon's gate, but when it landed, it found that it had fallen into an even worse quagmire. The sound of the piano, which was played in high and low, expressed an intense feeling of difference, like an icy wind blowing from the summit of a mountain, cold and threatening. The image darkened, and a square window became dimly lit. In front of the window, against the light, a figure could be seen hugging his knees, his head resting on his knees. From his slightly plump figure, it could be seen that this person should be Suho. In the dark background, in the cold and gloomy room, Suho sat alone, like a cub that had sunk into sorrow and confusion, at a loss as to what to do. But gradually, the sound of the flute, which had softened, diluted the sorrowful atmosphere, and the sorrow in the music gradually weakened. The drumbeat, with a rhythmic pace, approached the ear step by step. In the image, the light from the square window gradually became brighter, and the outline of the human figure seemed to be dyed with a layer of golden light. Another day, the sky had brightened. Not only the window, but the sunlight also seeped in through the broken walls and the cracks in the doorframe. The dark room also became brighter, dispersing the gloomy coldness. The figure that had been sitting there quietly raised his head and slowly moved. The light that shone in caused his round pupils to contract. He followed the light source and looked out the window. The cracks on the window glass made the sunlight have a mysterious and psychedelic color. The broken window could not block the scenery outside. His pupils, which had adapted to the light source, seemed to see something through the window. He got up, walked to the broken door, and opened it. The sunlight shone on Suho, and the scene became warm. Some of his messy hair was blown up, and the fresh grass at his feet seemed to be dancing. The wind played a bright and optimistic tone, and the deep and warm tone of the horn was like a fresh and gentle wind on a lush grassland, completely dispersing the gloomy coldness from before. The bass brass, woodwinds, and strings played a powerful theme in unison with a resolute and powerful tone. The music took a turn at this moment. After the orchestra and strings played together, the emotions expressed by the music became stronger through off-key and other techniques. Amid the resolute drum beats, the flute brought with it an upward force, and the strings were pulled as if life was bursting forth, and all things were stirring. Winter had passed, and flowers were about to bloom, and the grassland would eventually return to green. 2 lines of words appeared on the screen. I don't understand anything, but I will learn. The repressed sadness in the music became weaker and weaker. Through the sound of the keys, it entered a brighter and wider musical field of vision, as if every note was being rubbed into the depths of the soul. In the video, Dongshan Farm had a few more hired workers. Suho ran along with them, and the hired workers ground the soil with their fingers, saying something. They even dipped some soil into their mouths and tasted it. Suho also tried it, and his fat face became distorted. The old man laughed and continued to explain. Suho squatted beside him and listened attentively. Some of the old farm workers not only watched, but also liked to taste their farms to understand. Many of the old people watching the live broadcast smiled. Wui had once said that grass stalks contained the 4 seasons, and he was not lying. They could use the taste of the grass stalks to know how they were growing, to predict the changes in the soil, and to understand whether changes in the climate would affect the harvest. Similarly, the people who tasted the soil did the same. And in the eyes of many of the old farm owners, the people who did this were people who treated the land seriously and would manage the farm with a sense of responsibility. They were not the big landowner businessmen that people from other continents had the impression of. Following that, Suho spoke into the communicator, then quickly ran towards the flying transport. He did not even have time to change out of his work clothes. His body and feet were covered in mud, and his unkempt hair was covered in grass. After that, the flying transport flew high up into the sky. The strong wind blew away the withered grass that had unknowingly blown over the tarmac. The sound of the engine blended into the music, bringing with it a driving rhythm that continued upwards. It was as if the mood was soaring, and it wanted to go higher and further into the sky. Ignorant of the ways of the world, being ridiculed, being ignored, those are not important. As long as you know where you want to go, that's enough. Continuing the previous melody, the main melody was transplanted to be performed by a string group with the accompaniment of the flute. The layers of the music were clearly thicker, and the range of the voice was widened. An uplifting horn joined in, and as it continued upwards, the color of the music changed from tints to cheerful, grand, and bright. In the video, from a bird's eye view, one could see a large green grassland full of life. Sheep walked slowly on the grassland, and a few shepherd dogs ran energetically around them. Beside the signboard of Shanmu Farm, Wu Yi, wearing a hat to block the sun, smiled and opened his arms, giving the young boy a hug. Happy working with you. I want to stand on the instructor's platform at the sheep herding competition. In the video, Suho had dark circles under his eyes. His hair was even more disheveled from the wind, as if he had not taken care of it for a long time. Coupled with his pale and chubby face, he looked comical, but his youthful eyes shone with a determined light. From ignorance to clarity, from confusion to perseverance, step by step, what would the outcome be? Success or failure? None of this was important. In the high-spirited music led by the wind group, the drum beats became sonorous and forceful, just like the choice he had made in his heart. You need to get their approval as soon as possible, and let them accept you, Wui said. After that, it was a scene of Suho eating and sleeping with the shepherd dogs. In the video, after Suho had fed the shepherd dogs, he carried his own bowl and casually sat on the steps of the kennel, taking big bites of the food that did not look very good. People from Muzhou could tell at a glance that the food was not very exquisite. It was about the same as what they ate on a daily basis. At night, he slept in the kennel with the dogs. From the start, the few dogs in the kennel kept their distance from Suho. The video even gave Dongshan Farm's a dog, Bingo, a close-up of a look of disdain. But the video changed. Every day, the distance between Suho and the shepherd dogs closed, until a few dogs were by Suho's side. There was no negative self-lamentation. The strings of the zither became more forceful, like a sword taking the initiative to attack. The vocal parts became thicker, and the pitch increased. The rhythm and speed gradually became stronger, as if it was injecting energy again and again. The colorful changes in the harmony indicated that he was constantly working hard. Together with the shepherd dogs, Suho ran on the green grassland. Very good. Continue to give them instructions. Keep up. You must keep up. Don't get left behind. Run with them. Wu Yi's rough voice roared in the midst of the music. Why not use the grassfield car? That was because many shepherd dogs were wary of the grassfield vehicles, which made it even more difficult to get close to the shepherd dogs. The instructors of the competition basically walked and ran with the shepherd dogs at the beginning of their training until they had enough judgment and adaptability. Only then would they gradually pull away from the dogs and not give instructions when they were close enough. If they could run, they would fall. After falling, they would get back up and continue running. The 3 bodyguards did not follow beside him. They only watched the surroundings. Every day, they helped spray medicine and treated all sorts of injuries on Suho's body. Suho's fair and chubby face had lost weight and become tanned from the sun. Suho was just a newbie, and there was not enough time for him to slowly adapt. Thus, he had to spend more time every day running and herding with the shepherd dogs. He constantly shouted out instructions and called out the names of each dog so that they would remember his voice, even if it was just a hoarse voice. They would remember the hand gestures he made when giving instructions, even if it was a slightly deformed finger from spraying medicine. On the screen, Suho's face was pale because he was too nervous during the first match. His movements were stiff, and he made mistakes in panic. Every part of him told people that he was a rookie. Many people who saw that scene would comment, "With this kind of skill, don't go on stage and embarrass yourself." However, at this moment, many people watching the live broadcast, especially those from the eastern region, were abnormally silent. They knew what they were about to see. Dongshan Farm's battle record, as well as their continuously accumulating points. Suho requests for on-the-spot guidance. Suho requests for on-the-spot guidance. Suho requests for on-the-spot guidance. In different competition venues, different commentators were saying the same thing, but from the screen, it could be seen that Suho's attitude changed every time he gave instructions. From hesitation, nervousness, and unfamiliarity at the beginning, to decisively requesting for instructions and calmly making accurate hand gestures. Once again, the fervent emotions surged. It was like a young eagle spreading its wings, waiting for the wind to blow. Then it would welcome new challenges and seize new glory. A clear conscience, no fear of the future. That was the unstoppable momentum of youth. At the end of the video was a photo of Suho and the 7 shepherd dogs. Behind them stood 2 people. One was Wu Yi, and the other was Feng Zhao. Credits at the end filming, Wu Yi, Suho, Feng Zhao editing, Feng Zhao, Suho soundtrack, Chasing Wind composer. Feng Zhao, however, very few people paid attention to the credits at the end. Most people were thinking about Suho in the video. This short promotional video gave people a new understanding of Suho. After the promotional video ended, the commentator was silent for nearly 5 seconds. Then, with a kind of good-natured teasing, he jokingly said, "Do you know what kind of people I hate the most?" An invited guest next to the commentator asked, "What kind?" The commentator replied, "The kind that clearly comes from a good family, but still works exceptionally hard." The guest laughed. It has to be said that behind the scenes, Suho has also put in a lot of effort. This is an inspirational example. Seeing this, many people who were familiar with Suho were puzzled. What? Inspirational example? That retarded Suho? Of course, there were people online who had a different focus. I took a screenshot of the photo at the end of the video. Everyone take a look. Doesn't the person standing behind look a little familiar? Are you not paying attention to the video? The video says that is Shanmu Farm's owner, Wu Yi. Nonsense. Of course I know that is Wu Yi. I'm talking about the person standing at the other side. Who is that? I don't think he appeared in the promotional video just now. There were also people who quickly recognized him. Chapter 100. The music scene in Muzhou was indeed not strong. They did not understand many styles of music and did not even pay attention to pop stars, let alone composers of symphonies. Other than a few glances from the media, they did not pay much attention to composers of symphonies. But now, at this year's Eastern Region Finals, a newcomer had appeared in the promotional video of a competing team, and the number of people paying attention had increased. Who is Feng Zhao? Many people who usually only paid attention to agriculture, weather, and sheep herding competitions were now a little interested. Some students from music academies had found out that Feng Zhao was a rising star in the music industry and was praised by many seniors in the music industry. He was also sought after by the younger generation. Some Muzhou natives reacted by saying, "Sounds impressive, but how did Su-ho manage to invite this person?" That's right. How did Su-ho manage to invite Fang Zhao to compose the background music for the Eastern Region Finals promotional video? But even if they were curious, they had no way of knowing the truth. Of course, the focus of the Muzhou masses was still Su-ho and Dongshan Farm's 7 dogs. The focus of the promotional video had not been to promote the new Dongshan Farm, but to introduce the growth of Dongshan Farm's young master. The combination of video and sound had left a deep impression. It was also because of this promotional video that some people felt it was not good to mock Su-ho. After all, he was still a middle school kid, and he was a hardworking kid who could endure hardships. Older people would always have good impressions of these hardworking youngsters. Some of the parents watching the live broadcast also started nagging at their children. "Look at Su-ho. Blah, blah, blah." Su-ho probably did not expect to become someone else's kid, but he did not have the mood to care. He was preparing for the finals. Perhaps it was because of the promotional video, but Su-ho's nervousness had lessened significantly. In its place was an indescribable fighting spirit, as if something he had been looking forward to for a long time had finally arrived. When Su-ho told Fang Zhao about this feeling, Fang Zhao laughed. That's called confidence. After the competing teams' promotional videos had finished playing, the viewers realized that among all the promotional videos, the one that had left the deepest impression was Su-ho's. It had made them remember Su-ho's growth as a small farm owner. All right, the promotional videos are all about bragging. Next, it's a real battle of strength. The people watching the match calmed themselves down and looked forward to the next match. The finals of the Eastern region would decide which 4 teams would enter the finals. The arena was larger than the regular season, and the sheep herding route was longer. The grass was more undulating, and it was easy to deviate from the route. At first, when the viewers heard this, they might have thought that the team was making excuses for their poor results, but after the 3rd and 4th farm owners said the same thing, everyone started to doubt it. "I paid special attention during the 2nd round," Wu Yi said in the viewing hall. "This year, the sheep arranged for the finals are different from those in the regular season. They look the same, but their temperaments are different. They are bolder and more violent." Just now, the 4th team was one of them. In the middle of the run, the flock of sheep almost scattered. A few sheep even stamped their hooves at the shepherd dog and provoked the lead dog, almost crashing into it. "It's not going to be easy." Wu Yi sighed. But this was not the time to lose morale. He turned and patted Su-ho's shoulder. "Don't worry. The harder it is for the others. They all took longer than last year. Don't be too stressed." The 5th team to appear is Shobei Farm. We have to watch carefully. I heard that the top dog of this round is going to fight for the best in this year's finals. Wu Yi and the others looked serious. If they had to say who was giving them the most pressure, it was definitely Shobei Farm. They were still at the top of the leaderboard and were the most likely to win first place in the East, or even the entire continent. Shobei Farm's lead dog, Golden Colt, drew a lot of screams the moment it appeared. Of course, those in the field could not hear it. Every spectator in the viewing gallery and the live broadcast had their eyes glued to that figure. That was an ace dog that could truly herd sheep with just a look. Foreign stars and Muzhou dogs. The affection that Muzhou people poured into shepherd dogs was something that people from other continents could not understand. To the people of Muzhou, the dogs in the sheep herding competition were as dazzling as stars. The discussion section of the sheep herding competition's official website had long been bombarded with messages. If one watched the live broadcast through the virtual viewing gallery, one could hear the deafening shouts. The previous few farm owners had all said that the sheep in this year's competition were exceptionally difficult to herd. But when it came to Shobei Farm, it was a different story. The speed at which the sheep were sprinting was much faster than the previous 4 teams. They're about to make the turn. Shobei Farm's luck is not bad. Their lead dog, Golden Colt, is picking up speed. It's exerting pressure on the lead sheep. They're changing directions. The sheep are changing directions. Compared to the previous teams, Shobei Farm's team was lightning fast when they made the turn. There was no pause in the entire process. Shobei Farm's lead dog, Golden Colt. Godly courage. A profound explanation of what it means to herd sheep with one's eyes. In the pen. All in the pen. Perfect. 4 minutes and 32 seconds. If the commentator had not directly mentioned the matter of swapping out sheep breeds, perhaps some people would have suspected that those few farms were making excuses for their poor performance. Not everyone could tell that the sheep breeds were different. When the 7th team came up, Wu Yi led his people to send Suho and the competition dog to the competition venue. When the 7th team finished, it was Dongshan Farm's turn to come up. All right, the 8th team to come up is another team that has received a lot of attention this year. Dongshan Farm also has a very special competition dog. While the commentator was giving the pre-match commentary, Wu Yi hurriedly ran back and sat in his chair. His eyes were glued to the screen, afraid to miss a single scene. It's time to start. The commentator's voice rose, stirring up people's nerves. They gathered the sheep quickly, and the herding went smoothly. Up until now, Dongshan Farm's competition dog has done very well. Their time is also considered short. Other than Shobei Farm, their time is the shortest, the commentator said as he looked at the results given by the statistician. Wu Yi, who was sitting in his chair, could not sit still. He stood up and walked closer to the screen. He clenched his fist and bit it with his teeth. His lips were still moving, as if he was praying for something. Fang Zhao also stared at the screen. He knew that a crucial point was coming up. Which side of the pin they would enter was given at the last minute, or was it random? Before this, there was no way to predict it. It depended on luck and tested the adaptability of the competition dog and the instructor. When the sheep had been herded halfway, the screen displayed a random answer. It was given to the left side of the pin. This was not good news for Dongshan Farm, because their lead dog, Curly Hair, was on the left. According to convention, the lead dog on the right side would herd the sheep to the left. If the left side wanted to herd the sheep to the left, there were 3 possibilities. The first was for the lead dog to run to the right and force the sheep to turn. The second was for the instructor to give orders to the second dog on the other side to help force the sheep to turn. The most conservative method was to force the sheep to stop before turning, but this method was too time-consuming. The second dog on Dongshan Farm's team was Bingo. They had discussed how to choose before the match, but in the end, they followed Fang Zhao's suggestion and chose the first method. Turn. They are about to change directions. Pay attention to your positioning. This is the time to test the ability of the lead dog. See if they can follow the instructor's instructions and force the sheep to change directions. Or, like many teams, force the sheep to stop and then herd the lead sheep. The commentator was still explaining, spittle flying everywhere. Suho requests for on-the-spot guidance. Oh. I have a feeling. The commentator looked at the data display beside him and took a deep breath. They might. A certain word lingered on the tip of his tongue, but he didn't dare say it out loud. In the viewing hall, Wu Yi was so nervous he wanted to bite his fingers off. His eyes kept shifting between the timer on the top right corner of the screen and the competition scene in the middle. His whole body was so tense that it was as if he had been petrified. Fang Zhao looked at the competition scene on the screen and suddenly laughed. He added the 3 words that the commentator had not said. Breaking the record. Wu Yi's ears twitched. He had heard Fang Zhao's words clearly, but his brain didn't seem to understand. His teeth, which were clenched into a fist, started chattering. In the pins. In the pins. Everyone in the pins. 4 minutes and 20 seconds. 4 minutes and 20 seconds. The commentator's voice was hoarse as he roared hysterically. Ever since the competition was reformed 80 years ago, the Eastern region's best time has been 4 minutes and 21 seconds. That was the record set by Lightning's team, who was known as the Divine Dog for 5 consecutive championships. Now, Dongshan Farm's team has rewritten the record with a 1-second advantage. It can be said that if they hadn't changed the breed, this time would have been shortened by at least 10 seconds. Wu Yi felt like he had heard everything, but at the same time, he felt like he had not heard anything. His lips were still trembling, and he couldn't speak smoothly. Breaking the record? Yep, Fang Zhao replied. If it had been a combat dog from the end of days, Feng Zhao believed that 1 minute would not have been more than 2 minutes, and they wouldn't have needed human guidance to herd the flock of sheep into the pens. However, for Muzhou, which had been peaceful for 500 years in the new era, it was already not bad for the farm's normal combat dogs to be able to do this. Feng Zhao understood a little why the people who had founded Muzhou had made Muzhou's sheep-herding competition a tradition. It was like the new era's never-ending annual military service. The sheep-herding competition was the same. Although it was unavoidable that some dark, utilitarian motives were mixed in, the competition and the training behind it kept the valiant genes in their blood active. Regardless of whether they were service dogs or surviving wild dogs, if the world changed one day, they would be able to quickly enter the battlefield as reserve combat dogs, just like during the end of days. Chapter 101. Su Ho was on fire. The Muzhou internet was in a frenzy. A record-breaking team in the Eastern Region sheep-herding competition semifinals. Su Ho was a farm owner cum instructor. Furthermore, he was a descendant of the Su family and had the label of an inspirational youth. How could the media let go of this opportunity to hype up the topic? Not just Muzhou's entertainment media, even the political news section, education section, sheep-herding section, agriculture section, and even the weather section mentioned it. Especially the education section. It was rare to find someone who could be used as a positive role model. Naturally, they publicized it. The influence of sheep herding in Muzhou was something foreigners could not understand. Su Ho had gone from a rich family retarded to a rising star. The shock of the 3 words record-breaking covered the whole of Muzhou. As long as people in Muzhou talked about this year's sheep herding competition, Dongshan Farm and Su Ho would definitely be mentioned. With the pre-competition promotional video as a foundation, no one could say that Su Ho had reaped the fruits of others' labor. Of course, when people praised him, there were also people who found fault. Even if Su Ho is a member of the Su family, at his age, he doesn't have enough money to buy a farm and then hire someone to clean it up. The training and feeding of the shepherd dogs as competition dogs, as well as the medical team, are not cheap. Are you guys blind? And inspirational role model? And creating miracles? Can we look at the closing credits of the promotional video? Feng Zhao. The main composer and editor is Feng Zhao. The Feng Zhao who single-handedly propped up Silverwing's virtual idol project and just finished his global lecture tour. He must have made a move again. To be able to revive Silverwing's virtual idol project from the dead, this incident with Su Ho must have been planned by him. Who knows? It might have been a conspiracy from start to finish. That's right. Who knows? There might be someone supporting him from behind the scenes. Otherwise, how could Su Ho, who knows nothing, get Feng Zhao to compose for him so smoothly? How did he manage to cooperate with Shanmu Farm so smoothly? And he just so happened to get those shepherd dogs, especially that flying dog. However, Su Ho did not care about the doubts online. In the past, he had cared a lot about the media's evaluation of him online. Now, he did not even bother to look. He did not have the time either. After the competition ended, he had received a non-stop stream of phone calls. Congratulations from his classmates and other members of the Su family. His brother even took the time to call him while he was busy with his experiments. This was very rare. He had just ended the call with his brother when he received a call from his 2 younger sisters. They said that they wanted to visit his Dongshan farm and take a photo with Curly Hair and the others. However, the auntie taking care of them did not allow it, saying that it was too dangerous and that they would find another opportunity after the commotion died down. Muzhou Central Region, Qingtai Mountain. Qingtai Mountain was not the tallest mountain in Muzhou. In fact, it could not even be considered tall. It looked like a mountain that had been shaved off 2/3 of its original height. The buildings on it were mostly courtyards and retro. There were no towering skyscrapers. But in Muzhou, this mountain had an extraordinary significance. The earliest Muzhou government had been located there. Founding era Great General Su Mu and a few other important leaders had lived there. Later, after the population had increased, the city had been reconstructed and the government offices had been moved elsewhere. Now, those who lived on Qingtai Mountain were all descendants of the earliest leaders, but most of them were old people who had already retired. Young people were not willing to be cooped up in a place with so many restrictions. And on Qingtai Mountain, inside an old residence, a few silver-haired elders sat in the middle. Surrounding them were a few middle-aged men and women sitting cautiously. The house was very quiet. The younger generation sitting in the corner wished they could find a place to sneak out. Originally, a few elders had arranged to watch a match together. They did not expect to see a junior from the Su family. To the elders who were dozens of years older than Su Ho, they did not have deep feelings for a junior of Su Ho's age. They could not even count the number of great-grandchildren with 2 pairs of hands, let alone great-great-grandchildren. Unless they were especially outstanding or good at making their presence known, they might not be able to immediately recognize them when they were suddenly mentioned. But the Eastern sheep-herding competition had made them remember Su Ho's name. I never expected that among the younger generation of the family, there would actually be such a little fellow, an elder exclaimed. To be able to achieve his current results, it is indeed not bad, another elder praised. These old fellows had experienced a lot. Whether Su Ho had anyone supporting him or not, they did not need to investigate to guess. But regardless of whether it was good luck or finding help, this was also Su Ho's ability. Why did Feng Zhao choose to help him instead of anyone else? There were so many young and promising people in the Su family. Why did Feng Zhao, who already had some fame in the music industry, choose Su Ho, who no one had thought highly of and was often called retarded behind his back? In the end, luck was also a part of ability. That Feng Zhao guy, I heard he is a composer from Yinzhou? Yeah, I asked. This year, Su Ho went to Yinzhou to pay his respects. He should have met this Feng Zhao there. What a coincidence, the same name and surname. There were so many people in the world with the same name and surname. There were also many people with the same name and surname as martyrs. They could only guess that when Su Ho went to Yinzhou to pay his respects, he had coincidentally met someone called Feng Zhao. When the time comes, we will investigate again. But this is all secondary. What I want to know is who set up that trap. The elder, who had originally spoken mildly, suddenly hardened his tone towards the end. His eyes flashed with a sharp glint like an unsheathed knife. They had allowed the younger generation of the Su family to compete. Only when there was competition would there be motivation. Only the more outstanding people could obtain better resources. Small squabbles were fine, but they absolutely would not allow this kind of method of harming one's own family for the sake of benefits. If they wanted to compete, they had to compete openly. They absolutely would not allow such a situation to occur. This was what Great General Su Mu had left behind for the Su family descendants. Anyone who violated this rule would be expelled from the Su family. If it was not the Su family harming one of their own, then it was all the more reason to investigate. Who dares to harm our Su family? Even if he really is retarded, is he someone you can bully as you please? Investigate. The resounding and forceful word investigate made the flesh of the younger generation in the room tremble a few times. It seemed like some people were going to be out of luck. After Su Ho ended the call with his younger sister, he received a video call from his cousin in Qingqing. Su Ho, you are feeling great. Su Ho had a blank look on his face. Hee, a few people are going to be out of luck. The girl on the holographic screen laughed in schadenfreude and recounted what had happened in the room on Qingtai Mountain. Following that, she acted as though she was getting to know Su Ho all over again. Su Ho, you have changed quite a bit. You have gotten thinner and tanner. Hey, in that promotional video, were you acting, or was it really an edited version? Of course it was edited. Everything inside is real. Su Ho argued. Inside were videos of his 3 bodyguards, various surveillance cameras at Shanmu Farm, Feng Zhao's purposeful recordings, as well as his own recordings. They had been collected and re-edited into a short film that was a few minutes long and slightly artistic. Before that, he had not known that he was under the surveillance of his 3 bodyguards. After finding out, he had been a little annoyed, but thinking that he was indeed prone to accidents and had a criminal record, he did not blame the 3 bodyguards for his own safety. He had just given them new assignments. I was just asking. Don't get agitated. His 6 dogs added up to a total value of over 10 million, and this was only temporary. When the finals started, their value would rise again. Perhaps it could even multiply. The wrinkles on Wu Yi's face deepened. At the same time, he could not help but lament. Fang Zhao said that back then. This dog had been wandering the black streets for who knows how long. When he was picked up, he was so skinny that he could not even stand up. For people from Muzhou who love dogs, the circumstances that Fang Zhao had described were simply unimaginable. Muzhou's laws protected the interests of Muzhou citizens. Every legal Muzhou citizen had their own land. Other than the land inherited from their parents and elders, charitable organizations would also allocate land or work to people with special circumstances. As long as they were not lazy and did not abandon themselves to despair, they would be able to survive. Dogs were different. They did not have land or jobs, but Muzhou did not have stray dogs. Even if they were abandoned by the old farm owners, the new farm owners would raise them. Otherwise, they would be seen as heartless and cold-blooded. Foreigners saw this as moral coercion, but Muzhou people felt that this was how it should be. Since they had decided to raise them from the start, they had to take responsibility. As for whether they raised them well or not, it was up to the farm owners to decide. Fang Zhao's luck is really good. Who would have thought that a stray dog picked up would actually have such a value? If they could really find out, what would have happened in the black streets back then? And as curly hair dominated the annual Eastern region rankings, his background was also exposed. What? Not our Muzhou dog. He actually came from Yinzhou? Therefore, on Muzhou's internet, many people like to use the term flying dog to describe curly hair. They felt that the name curly hair was too informal and did not reflect the qualities of this lead dog. Therefore, most of the time, they just called him flying dog. It would be great if someone from Muzhou could buy curly hair. Even if they couldn't, they were still looking forward to curly hair's performance in the finals. Muzhou was hyped up, and there were people contacting people in Yinzhou to see if they could get any other news. The Yinzhou media was like a cat that had smelled blood and reacted very quickly. What? The most valuable dog of Muzhou's Eastern region finals is our Yinzhou dog, worth 50 million? Is a dog that expensive? Oh right, it's Muzhou. The people of Muzhou are a bunch of crazy dogs. No matter what, it was on the news. Thus, in no time, many people in Yinzhou found out about this matter. On the outskirts of Qian City, on the black street where Fang Zhao had once lived. As usual, Yu Qing was eating lunch and sipping a cup of tea slowly. He watched the news while lying on a chair by the entrance, basking in the sun. Muzhou sheep herding competition? What's so special about that? 50 million? The people of Muzhou are really crazy. TSK, they don't know how much a dog worth 50 million. Cough, 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 cough. Yu Qing choked and coughed so hard that he wanted to curl up. He threw the cup in his hand to one side. With great difficulty, he recovered and heard AI-1 rushing over from the pharmacy. Old you, something big has happened. What? Have you seen today's news? You mean Fang Zhao's little curly hair? Yes. AI-1 extended 5 trembling fingers and said agitatedly, 50 million. That little curly hair that wandered our black street for God knows how long and almost died is worth 50 million. And this is only temporary. I heard that after the Muzhou competition, it will go even higher. Old you, 50 million. This old man has worked himself to the bone to open a pharmacy and work part-time as a doctor. Last night, I treated patients and earned a little less than 100,000. I was so excited I couldn't sleep, but compared to this dog, I suddenly feel like raising a dog. Where are there any stray dogs on our street now? I'll go pick one up. Who knows, maybe I won't have to open my shop anymore. AI-1 had dark circles under his eyes. He shook his head as if he was daydreaming. Then he shook his head and mumbled something. Yu Qing went into the shop and handed him an iced beverage. Drink some. AI-1 gulped down 2 mouthfuls and shivered from the cold. Are you awake? Yu Qing asked. Yes. AI-1 dragged a chair over and sat beside him. He sighed. Some people's luck is not something we can hope to encounter. Furthermore, that kid Fang Zhao is also capable. How long has it been? He's doing so well. That kid probably doesn't care about 50 million, right? Sigh. Back then, I was the one who shaved that little dog and broke one of my machines. Shaving a dog worth 50 million, and even shaving it completely, I can brag about it for a year. If only the dog's fur had been kept, it might have sold for quite a bit. AI once sat on the chair and raised his head to look at the afternoon sun shining down on the black street. He squinted and raised his hand to shield his eyes. That kid is different from us. He is still so young and can go even further in the future. In a few decades, we might still be stuck on the black street. Yuqing rarely heard AI once so emotional. It seemed like he had been provoked by that 50 million curly hair. But halfway through, why did he stop talking? Old you. Yes, I'm listening. AI-1 pointed to the sky. Drone. Yuqing raised his head in astonishment. Indeed, a drone was descending from the sky. It was a delivery model. Whose house was it upstairs? That's not right. Why do I feel like it's going to descend all the way to the bottom? AI-1 used his hand to shield his eyes from the sun as he watched the drone descend. Yuqing also sensed that at this location, only his shop was at the bottom. Old you, what did you buy? Or what did your wife buy? Nothing. My order arrived a few days ago. Even if I bought it, it wouldn't be delivered like this. Yuqing watched the drone descend. This model was faster and more stable, but the shipping cost was several times more expensive than a normal drone. Yuqing, delivery, an electronic voice said from the drone. It really is mine. After verifying the identity, the drone lowered a container about 2 meters wide and 1 meter tall. When they saw the sender's name, Yuqing and AI-1 exchanged a glance and worked together to move the container into the shop. As soon as the door closed, AI-1 rushed Yuqing to open it. Quick, quick, let's see what Feng Zhao sent. After Yuqing opened the container, he discovered that it was filled with vacuum-packed meat products, some sealed cereals, and some processed foods. The place of origin was Muzhou. Even if there were processed foods in Muzhou, they were made from natural crops and sold at a high price outside of Muzhou. Inside was a message from Feng Zhao, saying that he was currently in Muzhou and that he had conveniently sent some Muzhou specialties to Yuqing and AI-1. Ha ha ha, that kid hasn't forgotten about us. Old you, Feng Zhao said that a portion of this is mine. I will temporarily store it in your family's warehouse. I don't have any storage facilities there. That's it. I'm going back to close the shop. We'll have barbecued meat later. Yuqing smiled and shook his head as he watched AI-1 run off in a jubilant mood. They were just like that. They didn't have great ambitions. Although they grumbled, they were easy to satisfy. Chapter 103. After the end of days, development was the #1 priority. Given the level of technology at the time, industrial development inevitably required sacrifices, such as the environment. Other than Muzhou, the other 11 continents had all experienced a period of suffocation. Some people had even wondered if they had made the wrong choice. Would the world be destroyed? Should they stop their current progress and build a spaceship to find a new place to live? Fortunately, they had endured. New energy sources had replaced the old ones, and construction had sped up. The development of technology had also reduced waste emissions. The 12 continents of the new era had truly stabilized. But other than Muzhou, the other continents did not have many suitable places to grow crops. Therefore, many raw materials for food production were obtained through soilless cultivation and other methods. 500 years had passed, and Muzhou had always existed peacefully as one of the 4 special continents. This was a rule everyone abided by. They did not interfere with Muzhou's development. On the contrary, if someone went to Muzhou to make changes, even if the people of Muzhou did not object, people from other continents would have objections. Some people had once said that Muzhou was the last pure land. In the hearts of the entire world, when it came to food, Muzhou held a very special place. Therefore, families with good conditions would choose food from Muzhou first, which was what they called natural. Generally speaking, Muzhou's established companies did not need endorsers to boost their popularity. The brand had already been established, and its influence in the hearts of the masses was hard to shake. and Su Feng's Four Elephants Company was a very young brand. When people were choosing products of the same price range, they would definitely choose brands they were familiar with. Su Feng had also found celebrities to endorse in other continents. It had been effective, but it had not been as good as he had imagined. After all, many other companies also found celebrities to endorse, and it was the same for everyone. This time, Su Feng planned to try it out in Yinzhou again. He would not find a real celebrity, but a more natural polar light. Polar light just so happened to be a little popular now. Polar light? Hearing Su Feng say this, Fang Zhao understood what he meant. That is indeed a very good idea, but Fang Zhao looked at Su Feng and said seriously, the price for Polar Light's endorsement is not cheap. Su Feng laughed as if he had heard something funny. Don't worry. Although our company has just started, we can still afford to hire an endorsement. As he spoke, Su Feng thought to himself, it seems like Fang Zhao does not understand the market price of endorsements. Yes, Polar Light was currently on the rise in Yinzhou and had some popularity, but it was not enough to compare to some of the real big stars. Silverwing, a virtual idol that had only risen to prominence less than a year ago and was not as popular as Miyu and Andy Liu, wanted an endorsement fee of 10 million a year? Do you think Muzhou people don't have brains? Duan Qinji did not mind Su Feng's tone. She only told him about Fiery Bird's decision to endorse Polar Light 4, Battle of the Century. Su Feng was speechless. Of course, he knew what this meant. After holding it in for a while, he said, even if we were chosen by Fiery Bird, your price is still too high. Su Ho went out for a run and came back. He saw his cousin standing there, his expression constantly changing, as if he was pondering some important decision. Su Feng raised his head and glanced at Su Ho, who had just returned. He took a deep breath, got up, and left. The next day, the partnership between Four Elephants and Silverwing and Polar Light was officially finalized. Su Feng did not just see Polar Light's appearance and influence in Yinzhou. He also saw Fang Zhao standing behind Polar Light. Su Feng believed that as long as Fang Zhao was around, Polar Light would only continue to rise. Thinking about the information he had on Fang Zhao, Su Feng felt that this person was too scary. In just over a year, Fang Zhao had gone from a nameless intern to a rising star with some fame in the music industry. He had completed a global lecture tour, taking control of Silverwing's entire virtual projects department, and even attracted the attention of the giant Fiery Bird. Even his dog had soared to a value of 50 million. Was this just a flash in the pan? Su Feng would not admit it. No matter what others said, based on his intuition, he believed that in the near future, this young man would become even more popular. Although he could not guess what exactly would happen, that was what his intuition said. Su Feng knew he was taking a risk. If the market proved him wrong, then he would be ridiculed by his peers. He did not really care about this. What he cared more about was the opinions of the few elders of the Su family who lived on Qingtai Mountain. He still wanted to obtain more benefits and resources from them after he achieved some results, but if he failed, then he could forget about it. While Su Feng and Duan Qinji's people were discussing the specifics of the contract, Fang Zhao had already boarded a flying transport to Yinzhou. Curly Hair remained in Muzhou, training with a few other shepherd dogs in preparation for the finals. Once again returning to Yinzhou, the moment Fang Zhao entered the department, he received a lot of attention. Boss, you are back. After Zhu Wan and the others shouted, they looked behind Fang Zhao and then around Fang Zhao's feet. They were somewhat disappointed. Curly Hair did not come back? He stayed in Muzhou to train. He still has to participate in the finals, Fang Zhao replied. Chapter 104. For virtual idols, getting an endorsement from Fiery Bird was like winning the lottery. Their popularity skyrocketed. Fiery Bird had no shortage of customers. Finding an endorsement was equivalent to finding a partner in Yinzhou. Marketing was done jointly by Silverwing and Fiery Bird. And once the juggernaut Fiery Bird's marketing campaign began, it was everywhere. Throw money. throw money ruthlessly. In the heart of Qian City, advertisements for Battle of the Century could be seen all over the buildings and plazas, entertainment venues, public transportation, and so on. There was still a long way to go before October, but many people felt that Fiery Bird was taking too long to publicize this once-in-a-decade game. Although what attracted the attention of gaming fans were the short videos released during the official promotions, people who did not pay attention to video entertainment would still remember Polar Light as a virtual idol. The whole of May could be said to be in full swing. Decade after decade, gaming fans who had saved up for a long time had already started to order the latest gaming hardware and upgrade their existing components. Those who were better off had already switched to brand new equipment and were just waiting for the game's release on October 1st. In a high-rise apartment complex in Qian City, members of the city's famous competitive gaming team, Big Dipper, were busy. "Captain, the water is running out. The meat is running out. Everything is running out." "Got it. I'll get someone to buy it. If there's anything, eat it first or order takeout." "Hey, Captain, let's change the brand this time. Let them buy the Four Elephants brand." "Everything over in Muzhou is the same. Was the old brand bad?" "Old brands, they can eat without worry. But I heard from my cousin that the Four Elephants brand they bought today is not bad either. It's even endorsed by Polar Light." "Polar Light endorsed? Let me see. Okay, let's try this brand first." At the side of the plaza, a young man was standing in front of a vending machine. He was thirsty from playing and wanted to buy water. He scanned the various types of purified mineral water and was about to choose the one he used to drink often. His gaze passed over the vending machine and landed on a billboard not far away. It was a poster for Battle of the Century. The young man looked at the poster, then at a bottle of water with a tree man printed on it and clicked Choose. Although online shopping had become very popular and fast in some large and medium-sized cities, there would still be shopping malls, these ancient shopping places, for some people who like to go there and enjoy the fun of ancient style. Recently, the gaming area was full of people every day. There were always some young people who liked to come and go. Recently, the sales of the Four Elephants brand food was also booming.